Meet Dr. Lois Lee. When she found 11-year-olds working as prostitutes in Hollywood, she took them home. She built the first drop-in center, ran street programs across the West, and created a world-class home for kids nationwide. Dr. Lois Lee didn't just start a movement, she's rescued over 17,000 kids from sex trafficking. Now she's pulling back the curtain so you can meet the kids who changed her life and hear the truths no one else will tell. Welcome to the Dr. Lois Lee Show.
Hello, I'm Dr. Lois Lee, and today I have Juli with me. I met Juli when she was 12 years old. A pimp called me and said she was too much trouble and he was putting on a train from San Diego to Hollywood. Juli, welcome.
Thank you, Lois. I'm really glad to be here.
Tell me about that experience, the pimp. Who was he? What was that like?
I remember a girl from a runaway shelter that I was in that introduced me to this pimp, and he took us down to Disneyland, Harbor Boulevard, and next thing I know, he's introducing us to other men down in San Diego, and I told these men I was 16, and the man said to me, or the pimp said to me, "You're not 16." And I said, "I'm 13." And he says, "What?" And I said, "Okay, actually I'm 12." And he just went, nope, you are going back. There's a place called Children of the Night in Hollywood. And I said, "Yeah, I already know about them." I've heard of them. So he already knew. So yes, it's a pimp with a heart, which is an absolute joke. But, really, he put me in the cab actually and sent me all the way back to Children of the Night.
In Hollywood at the time. We had an office on Highland in Franklin. It was the first drop-in center of its kind for children who were prostituting on the streets and had no place to go.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? I mean, when you met us, do you remember meeting us for the first time?
I do. When I left home, I was dropped off on Santa Monica Beach by a truck driver, and I was with the man that I was hitchhiking with, and I got away from him. I escaped from him and ran to it was a teen drop-in at that time. I think it was called Claire. And I ran in there and said, "This guy, this is what he's doing to me. He's going to lie and say that I'm his niece, and I'm not his niece, and I need help." And they did. They helped me, and they brought me to Hollywood to a shelter, and I left that shelter, and I met this girl, and she introduced me to people on the streets of Hollywood. And I ended up in a hotel with a known predator from out there. One Punch Willie is what they called him.
Yes, we knew One Punch Willie very well.
Yeah. And, thank God the woman in the hotel lobby saw me and was concerned enough to call Children of the Night. And Children of the Night responded, and they came out and got me.
And how did you respond? Who was it that actually came out to the hotel?
It was Vicky. She used to work with you in the drop-in office there for Children of the Night.
She was our program director for 25 years, yes.
Yeah. She came and got me, and I remember thinking, why would this perfect stranger want to come here and help me? Like, what is their MO? What are they really going to do with me? I had no trust at all in who you were and why this lady was coming to take me out of this hotel, even though I was in a horrible situation at that time. I had no idea what to expect and what to think. And, the other thing I want to point out, too, is that, yes, Children of the Night responded, and Vicky came and I say rescued me, but it didn't mean that I was automatically healed and my life just changed and transformed at that moment. It's been a lifelong healing process, but it was a seed. It planted the seed, and it showed me that there are people out there that do care about me and that I have worth. And so that was huge. That was a huge pivotal point for me. Even though I didn't trust Children of the Night yet, it gave me that hope that maybe things might be different if I stick around, maybe.
Juli, go through things that we did for you and what it was like and all the different services, because we were a fairly young organization at that time. We just had a drop-in center. We didn't have a place for kids to sleep. We relied on other agencies to help with that aspect of it. One was just a church that let kids sleep on the floor. So tell me about that, because you came to the drop-in center. I know you got hygiene and clothes. What else?
Yeah. Well, I've been with you guys for 38 years. Wow. And when I first met you, it was just the office there on Highland Avenue. And so I was hopping from shelter to shelter, and I was sleeping in abandoned hotels and sleeping in hotel rooms with people and just kind of all over the place. But Children of the Night was the one place I knew that I could go to that was safe, and I knew that I wouldn't be judged no matter what I was doing. They provided a trust for me. They started to help me build up my trust in people. And so not only was it just you guys giving me clothes, you had a clothing closet, and I would come in and get that, and there was cigarettes, and I was like, oh, good, I can get free smokes, and whatever it was, and the makeup and things like that. All those material things were fine, but what really mattered to me the most was that I could trust you guys, and I was safe. And that was so important for me at that time because there was no shelter. Mm-hmm. So when you were closed at night, because you were only open during the day, I was out running around still and doing all my, crazy stuff. And so you actually, I remember I was asked to go and sing with Richard Marx with a group of kids. He did the Children of the Night song. And
Richard Marx wrote the song Children of the Night and donated all the proceeds so we could build a home for kids like you. Yeah, he was very moved by meeting all of you. Yeah.
So that was huge. And then I was invited to, you had get-togethers and kind of for holidays, like you did Christmas. And other kids that you were working with also would come. And I started to get to know them. And it gave me a sense of family. Mm-hmm. And that was huge, especially being out here. There's no family out there. There's nobody, like that. And so that's what you gave me just on a spiritual level and just a, inner level. I remember I got pregnant, and you guys were there for me too, and it was a lot of emotional.
How old were you when you got pregnant?
I was 14, and I remember too, my son's dad. I met him on the streets, and Vicki would never let him come into the office. He would come to the door, and she'd just make him wait outside.
Yeah, we did that.
Right.
A lot of it was peeling. It was like peeling back, the people that, attached to you because you were just children.
Yeah. And, looking back at that, so it's so funny, but at the same time, I'm like, thank you for doing that. So I got pregnant, and you guys were just there to support me. You helped me get my first ID. I remember that. And I think I opened my first bank account. I think Vicki showed me how to do that. And then I was placed in the foster care system, not through you, but I got a social worker through Child Protective Services. And when I aged out of foster care, I remember I got my first place, and I wanted to be independent and be proud and show Children of the Night that I was doing so good and I'm going to make all this money. And that was my focus, was I'm going to make all this money and have all this stuff so I can show you, how well I'm doing. And I was a train wreck inside. I was a mess. Mm-hmm. And I was scared still, to try to do this on my own and raise a kid. And I started dancing in the clubs. And
strip clubs? What kind of clubs? Tell me about those clubs.
The strip clubs.
And how old were you?
I was 18 at that time.
And that's when they created strip clubs where kids could dance at 18 because they didn't serve liquor. Yeah. So they had changed the law to accommodate kids who needed money and to entertain their customers with tease young children, basically. At 18, you're still just developing. You're not.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I went from there. I did end up going to school. I got a scholarship for college. And I started at Los Angeles City College. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I moved to Hollywood. And so I was going to school, and I was working. I think I had a job at LA Free Clinic. I was doing HIV education and all that. But I was still involved in this other life at night. And I ended up in these clubs in downtown LA. And they were like a dime a dance clubs. Never heard of them before. And I met a girl that was dancing in these places. And the way to describe that, for people who don't know what that is, it's like you're given a number, and you sit on this huge couch, and the men come in, and they look at you, and they choose a number.
And many people didn't know they still existed.
Yeah.
And they were able to let us come in and talk to the young girls, and there were teenagers in there, too.
Yeah.
And run by gang members who dumped girls in the trash can and cut them up, and murders and everything. It was very dangerous. It was right downtown, very dark, no streetlights.
Yeah.
And you're just a little kid working there.
It was dangerous when I came to you for help with that, because I came to you for help.
Again, yes.
Because I didn't realize, it's like you got to remember, as a child, your brain is not fully developed. Mm-hmm. Of course, I learned all this later on in my years, but looking back, I just felt so naive and almost dumb for some of the decisions that I made. But I'm like, no, you know what? I was a child. my brain wasn't working at full capacity. I'm trying to raise another child, you know, and it's. So I'm not going to say that people are dumb for getting into those situations. They didn't have anybody there to protect them or to keep them safe from it or prevent them from it. And it's very alluring also for the money. And so I didn't realize how dangerous it still was. And I found myself in a situation where I was addicted to meth. I started meth through them. I was hanging out with these club owners who were organized crime and just dangerous people. And I reached out to Children of the Night because I didn't know who to go to. And I remember being embarrassed and I felt humiliated because I was trying to show everybody in the world how much better I was doing and I was strong and I could do this. But I still found myself in this situation, you know? And I know you were trying everything to help me. And I remember that. You had just gotten your JD, you just became a lawyer. And you went to the criminal courts building with me. I got arrested. You went down there to represent me and you were there for me again. And it just speaks volumes to what Children of the Night does. You know, it's we're in the business of raising kids, is what I've always said. Yeah. There's no program there's just no other program like this, you know, to think that years later. I always thought that once I was in the foster care system that I was just done with Children of the Night, that it was one of those places like a shelter where you're there, they help you, and you're done. And you're like, okay, thank you, thanks for the help, and I'm moving along, you know, and that's not what's happening here. That's not what this is about. You know, for you, these are my kids for life. And it's just so important. It was so important to me. I'm going to start crying again because
it's okay. It's okay.
You know,
so we've covered from 12 to 18, but then life went on at 18. After the Diamond Dance, we pulled you out of there and you went back to Portland, or?
I did. You know, after all that, I was actually scared out of LA. I was terrified of,
for good reason. It was a very dangerous place.
What I got involved in, you know, and I thought if I
remember we sat down and talked to our law enforcement friends.
We did. Yeah. And I was afraid of them at that time. I didn't want they offered me help too, and I just said no. I'm just going to leave, and I did. I left on my own accord, and I went up to the Pacific Northwest, up to Portland, Oregon. I have my family. Biological family, they're close to Portland, Oregon. And I heard it was a good place to raise families at that time. It's early 2000s, not so much now. But I got up there and I did well for a while. And then again, I found myself dancing again. And I found myself in that lure for the money and wanting the money. And I got addicted to meth again. And it wasn't until 2008 that I finally got clean. And I did that on my own accord. I just, that's what has to happen. You reach your bottom.
Did you go into a drug program? What did you do?
I went to treatment, and then I also started doing AA, the 12 steps.
So you did outpatient treatment?
I did outpatient treatment, but really the program, I just got myself involved in the program, showed up, and I said, look, if I don't do this, I'm going to end up in jail again or dead or whatever. I'm getting old and older, and I got to stop doing this. I need to stop. And,
so how old are we then?
Oh, gosh, probably 20.
And how old was your son?
Maybe 21, 22. Let's see, 2008. I was 22, 23. So my son was 12 or 13 at the time. So I got clean. And doesn't mean that my life was wonderful or anything. I'm still, work in progress. But life began to really change. And I went back to college because I had quit. I graduated high school with a diploma, and when I was in foster care. So I went to Portland State University, and I got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I said, I know this life, so why not? Who better?
Good for you.
So I did it, and I ended up working with Portland Police Bureau. In their domestic
I think those were friends of ours too, right?
Yeah, some of them, yes. Yeah.
And you were an intervention person. You worked with their domestic violence team, so tell us about how that worked.
We had a unit that specialized in domestic violence and trafficking, and I was a system-based advocate, which meant that I worked alongside the officers and the detectives, and we would get called out all over the city, hospitals, homes, homeless shelters, the streets, wherever the incident took place, day or night. That's where we would go, and so I would provide crisis intervention on the scene. and work with the survivor and trying to figure out what will be the best situation right now for you or you and your kids or whatever. And we provided, diapers and clothes and hotel vouchers and food and flights
So
home.
you're on the other end of the social services that were provided to you.
Yes.
Yeah. You completed the circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it felt amazing.
It's a very common story.
I also did outreach with Children of the Night back in the 90s. Even though I was doing my dancing and stuff, I remember I started wanting to give back in some way what had been given to me, even at that time, even though I didn't have my head all together. That felt incredible, So when I loved that, doing the outreach family, go out on Sunset, we'd go out on Santa Monica, I'd talk to the kids, we maybe got a couple out of 100 kids in the van that would actually trust me enough to get in the van, and brought them to the shelter. That we had the shelter at the time. And so I've just done what I could to continue to give back in those ways, even to Children of the Night. When I did get clean, I donated monthly for a while, what I could. I know my son came and helped teach dance to the kids in the shelter, and that was really cool. And whatever you'd ever ask me to do, I absolutely would do it for you. 100% absolutely, because I'm just grateful. I'm so grateful for what you guys have done for me. I don't think I would even be alive today.
We have a little clip of you, and I think you were maybe 19 or 20 on the Lisa Gibbons show, and you, among other kids, told their story. And how do you feel about that?
A lot of us kids told our stories so that it could help build the shelter and give future kids a home with Children of the Night. So I feel pretty good about that.
So let's take a look at a clip of Juli on the Lisa Gibbons show.
Today, at age 21, she is really proud of her life, proud of her accomplishments, especially motherhood. How you doing?
Hi.
Good. Just to give some perspective of how far you've come, 12 years old, out living on the streets. How were you making it?
Right. Well, I was abused by various people, which led me to run away. I came to Hollywood, like a lot of runaways do. I fell into prostitution real easily. And I got out of prostitution thanks to Children of the Night. They really helped me. And for a while, I was doing really good. I graduated high school. I went to college. But I was always struggling because I am a single mom. I had my son when I was 15. So I was getting welfare. I was working part-time and going to school, and I just got tired of it.
But talk to me about something that happened in the movie that seemed very real to me. Well, there's a powerful pimp who has an inordinate amount of control over your life because he's handling the purse strings and giving you shelter and all that. Lois, do you deal with the very real threat that somebody might come out and get these girls?
To the shelter?
Yeah.
Oh, no. No, I just tell them, come on down. It takes...
You'd love it if those pimps would show up, wouldn't you?
It makes it easy. Then we don't have to go get them.
It's very secure.
And we work real closely with the police department. And most pimps know that if a child's been to us, they're not, and the child's calling them, the phones are tape recorded, or if she goes out to meet him, she's wearing a microphone. We put a lot of pimps in jail each year. We're very active working with the police.
Yeah. What was it that snapped you onto this road of success? And I know you say you've still got the scars. I know it's always going to be with you, but what was the thing?
I was tired of doing it. You get tired of night after night being degraded by different men. I got sick of it. I just did,
Is it that simple, Dr. Lee? Can you just say, okay, stop?
They do get sick and tired of being sick and tired, but most of the time it's some crisis situation where they get on the phone, they say, get me out of here. I don't care what you've got, just get me out of here. I don't care if it's a born-again Christian program. I don't care if I have to scrub the floors with a toothbrush. Get me out of here. And that's what gets them out.
How do you feel about that clip, Juli?
I actually feel proud of myself for doing that because it was not easy. It's never easy getting up and telling your story, especially when there's things that are maybe embarrassing that you feel are embarrassing or you might be judged for. So I'm pretty proud that I did that, but I also did that as a way to help the other children at Children of the Night, the children that were coming in the future, to help build a shelter, to help show them that this program is truly what they say they are.
Juli, you represent so many of the kinds of kids that I'm going to be interviewing for this podcast because you are the kids who changed my life. You'll always be a kid to me, so excuse me if I still refer to you as that way. But You were the reason that I stayed with Children of the Night and built the shelter home. You were the reason you guys sacrificed your privacy and your lives, and you were the one who told the camera crews what was happening to you and what life was like. And you were the reason that Children of the Night evolved into a world-class shelter home for 25 years. And that's what this podcast is about, is to show the kids that changed my life, and that people can see that more needs to be done. That it's not about just talking and writing books and movies and things like that. That real services and the change in work, changing children's behavior, is about relationships. It's not, I mean, services are critical. You need to be ready to respond 24/7, but it's about building those relationships, and to see the kids will come back. And I mean, 38 years, and you don't stand alone. I know that you've been here for this reunion to help hand out diplomas to our new graduates, and you had a chance to meet other kids who have been with us for equally as long, some longer than you. So what was that like for you?
Oh, that was amazing. That was incredible, because it just shows that this program is still doing what it did from its very humble roots, from the time it started. It hasn't changed. And there's a lot of programs out there that don't last this long. I don't know of any actually programs that deal with trafficking that have been around this long, so being around the graduates and giving them those diplomas and seeing, knowing where they came from, understanding, really knowing and understanding, our stories might not be the exact same, but they're the same, and it takes me back, and it's like, this is so awesome, you guys, because I know where you've been. You don't have to let the past define you. That's not who you are. And that diploma speaks volumes. It says that, no matter where you came from, you can do anything you set your mind to, and you can do it. And getting that diploma was that first step, because I know it's huge. It's huge. So it just being there for that was just such an honor, to see those kids and knowing where they came from and where they can go now that they have that diploma.
Mm-hmm.
There's people out there who haven't graduated high school that haven't even been through anything like that, and they have no desire to go and finish, and yet you take these kids that have been through horrific things in their lives, and I know, and here they are graduating. It's okay. It brings me to tears thinking about it. So being a part of that was very, very, very emotional and just very special.
Tell us about Nick, your son.
Oh,
who I have a photo, because you used to bring him to the Christmas parties. I have a photo holding him as just a little over a newborn, and and tell us what he's doing now. Tell us what happened to him.
Right now, he is a flight attendant. He's been doing that for the last few years, but prior to that, he was a dancer, and he studied dance. He went to University of Utah and got his bachelor's degree, and was a professor of dance. And he came from, craziness. I wasn't, I was trying to be a mom. He came from a child raising a child, and he's also gone through a period of healing, and I can understand that too. But we are very close now. We've had periods where we were a little distant from each other, and he kind of pulled away, and he was just trying to heal. Mm-hmm. But I am so proud of him. He actually has been nominated for his outstanding service.
So what did you do after the domestic violence work?
After the domestic violence work, like I said, I kind of started to focus on healing, my own healing, but just healing, continuing to heal people who've experienced trauma. Mm-hmm. And so I went to massage school, completely different than what I've been doing and what my degree was in. But I had a lot of friends that were massage therapists, and I was receiving massage for my own healing. Mm-hmm. And I said, wow, this is so powerful. I really enjoy this. I think I'd like to learn how to do this. And that way I can volunteer, and I can go into shelters and offer this service to, women or people that need to heal.
Wow. What was that like?
It was awesome. It was great. They were ready to graduate. They were ready to get their own housing. So they were comfortable with touch, because you have to be in that position to want to have somebody put their hands on you and massage. So it was very healing, and people cry on the table.
We've talked about everything except What happened at a 12-year-old, and how did you do that? How does a 12-year-old get up and say, I'm out of here, and leave home and travel across country? I want to know how you did that. I want to know why you did that.
Well, I actually came from a very conservative religious family, and I had 3 older brothers.
Not uncommon.
I'll just squeeze this in. I learned later in life, and I'll come back to that, my mom came from a very abusive and alcoholic home. I didn't know that as a child, but she wasn't able to get any help or work on any of that. And so as a child, now looking back, I can kind of see where the breakdown started to happen, being a child of an alcoholic family and experiencing abuse like that you don't get help for.
Mm-hmm.
So there was just a very dysfunctional kind of dynamic going on in our house. And so my youngest brother, we found out, was schizophrenic. And the way we found that out is because he attacked me when I was 10 years old with a butcher knife and tried to kill me. And I remember I'd been telling my parents, hey, my brother's acting really weird. There's something wrong with him. Oh, yes, just boys being boys. And so that happened. And after that happened, my house was known as the psycho house. And so here I was, this little girl, when I was 10 years old. I didn't get any therapy for that. I just went right back to school and had to act like everything was normal. And my peers started treating me, of course, weird and awkward. And I was kind of ostracized and I was like this phenomenon, oh, that was the girl that was stabbed by her brother. That really takes a toll here, on your spirit, your mental health, and just your emotional health. And I started to feel disconnected, and I started to feel lost and alone, very alone. And I started fighting at school. And I was also being sexually abused as well. I won't go into details about that, but that was also going on as well. So there was this huge disconnect happening with me. I did try to get help, and I tried to speak up about the sexual abuse, and I wasn't heard, and I wasn't believed, and I wasn't protected.
And what year do you think that was? Can we recount that? Because things have changed quite a bit now. Now people are hysterical about it.
Yes, yeah. This was 1986 or 1987, around there when I spoke up. Things have definitely changed. But at that time, it was kind of like I was just kind of ignored.
And how does a 12-year-old run away from home? I mean, do you get like a hobo bag and you just go hitchhiking? What do you do?
I'll tell you, I ran away short distances a few times. And then I would either get cold or get hungry or whatever, or I'd just go back home because I'm a kid, But this time, I packed a little bag. I don't even remember what I even put in it, I got on my 10-speed bicycle, and I rode 20 miles to the Interstate 5 freeway.
At 12 years old?
At 12 years old, and there was a man hitchhiking there. And I went right up to him and said, can I hitchhike with you? Yeah. And now that man did things to me as well. I mean, of course, But a truck driver picked us up in Southern Oregon and dropped us off on Santa Monica Beach in the parking lot. And I remember getting here to LA, and I'm sitting here in Santa Monica Beach. I'd never seen anything like that before. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. Oh my gosh. I didn't care about what had happened to me, what this guy was doing to me. I was like, this beach is like glamorous. I'm like, wow, the pier and the old Ellie, the big old, Ferris wheel, and just, I put my feet in the water and it was warm, and I was like, wow, this is great. I thought it was cool.
And then is that where the pimp met you and took you to San Diego?
No, actually. Without going into detail, this guy was definitely utilizing me for his own well-being, and I was trying to get away. And he had pointed out homeless places where people could get food, and there was a place for teens he had mentioned. And I remembered, I made sure I knew what that intersection, what that street was. And I got away from him at one point. And I was trying to find that place so I could go get help. And he saw me, and he actually started chasing me. And I remember I ran into this place, and they were open, thank God. But I just ran in there and said, this guy, he's going to say I'm his niece. I'm not his niece. He's not my uncle. He's been exploiting me or whatever. I said, he's been doing all this stuff to me. And I said, I just need help. I need help to get away from him. And so, of course, he did. He showed up, and they kept him away from me. And they drove me to a shelter in Hollywood.
You know what's always surprised me about you? Because there's always something unique about each child that's touched my life, and that it's your resilience. You always come out with a smile on your face and a happiness and a presence. And I've never seen that in any other child. And the things you've gone through, there's no reason you should have that. But that's just Juli.
Thank you. Thank
Well,
you.
it's you. Let me ask you, if Congress was to ask you what they could do about that little 12-year-old girl today.
Get to know us. Get to know survivors. Get to know these kids that are trafficked. Once they're rescued, find out who they are. Listen to their story and believe them. That is so key. Like, just believe them. Don't blame them. You know, there's a society, there's a lot of victim blaming out there, even with children.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, these are children. They're not, you know, we are supposed to, as adults, to protect them, you know. Listen to them and believe them, because our stories, like, we are your best resource in understanding how this happens. We are your best resource in learning how to develop curriculum and education and helping people to see when it's happening. You know, we know we've lived it. We've got the best experience. I think I feel like there's this misconception as to what a survivor is supposed to look like or sound like or be like. And there's this misconception that somehow trafficking exists in far off distant land somewhere away from, you know, normal society in our suburban neighborhoods and Congress and politics and that. No, it's right here in your face. I mean, we're your neighbor. We sit next to you at church. You know, we could be your child's friend at school, whether it's a private school in DC or whether it's some school in the inner city somewhere. You know, we're everywhere. And that's what I would say to Congress is really learn from us.
How would they go about finding you and getting through, because there's so much fraud in the sex trafficking business, not just with selling children, but also in terms of people saying that they're rescuing children, and in fact, there are no real services.
Knowing what to look for. I mean, I know, and there's a lot of training out there, and there's just a lot of programs and things, but I also know that people have developed very just simple, the little hand signal behind your back, just these little things where normal, I want to say normal, but everyday people who don't deal with this can see something like that, or maybe somebody from Congress or whatever that doesn't know what this looks like, just seeing something that simple, this little thing behind the back, and they can go, oh, I recognize that because I learned about that. That was taught to me. It was in this class I went to, or, you know, I mean, I guess maybe that, and I've also maybe just putting out more information and hotlines in places where kids can go and maybe secretly find this phone number and call to get help secretly.
And not to be arrested.
Yes,
not to have their parents arrested, but to be rescued.
Yes.
And taken to a safe place and
Yes,
listened to.
yes.
And services provided, concrete services provided, you know, not just
Yes.
a crash pad or a foster home. There's too much handing off of children. And that was one of the things that irritated me when I was trying to just provide services on the street before I even envisioned the shelter, was that, and one of the reasons I started the shelter is that you'd refer a child somewhere, and then someone else would refer them, and then they'd refer them, and the child would get lost in the system that was designed to protect them.
Yeah. That was the shelter hop I was referring to.
Yeah.
A little while ago, I would just kind of go from shelter to shelter. You know, when I decided I was going to go check into one, you know, you kind of get just handed off because it's a 2-week thing. You can stay here 2 weeks, you can stay here 3 weeks. But I also want to touch on that too, what you just said there. You're right. They have these programs in place that are supposed to help with trafficking, but a lot of these places, I don't think, and I'm just speaking from my own, you know, experience and my own belief, they don't understand the dynamics. They don't truly understand the dynamics. I mean, I worked in a program up in Portland where we had I worked in trafficking cases on the other side. And literally it was, you know, having the police escort me to my office, having to have them go out a different door, a different path to get into a different car, putting a wig on them while they're inside of my office and changing their clothes and maybe even putting a pillow in their shirt to make them look bigger, putting a jacket on, a hat, whatever, to disguise them, to get out the other way, to get into a car, to take them somewhere safe, because that is what you have to do.
Yes.
I mean, that's just it. It's not just, I'm going to take them to my office and here's some stuff and okay, let's go find a place for you to stay at for the night or whatever.
Well, the
It's
predators
just-
are much smarter than the helpers.
Well, that's what I'm saying, you know, and I knew this based on my own experience, but I think you really have to understand what you're dealing with to make the programs effective and keep the kids protected in that
And
way.
it's not a 9-to-5 job.
No,
It's 24/7.
it's 24/7. Yeah.
And it always will be.
Yeah. Yeah. But also too, you know, when the kids say, you know, if this is some program, let's say out there that's working with trafficked kids and they say, I'm being followed right now. They're being followed.
Right.
Like they know, okay? They know. It's not this,
Right.
well, I don't really see anybody. I'm looking in the rearview mirror. I don't know. Maybe they're just on drugs or maybe they're tripping. They're just traumatized. It's like, no, believe them. They know.
Yes.
You know, so I think those are the kinds of things that make an effective program, you know, now. It's just my own opinion, but, you know, those things are very important.
What would you say to 12-year-old Juli today?
Oh, wow. Ooh, that's going to make me cry. Wow. You're not bad. And you're okay. You're not perfect, but you're okay and you're not bad. You had bad things happen to you, but you're not bad. Like, it doesn't mean that you are permanently scarred. And you are worthy and you are valued and you're loved.
Thank you for sharing your life today.
Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. There are many more to come.